is up.
Want to call to order the Town of Chincoteague Budget and Personnel Committee meeting, February 9th, 2021 at 5 p.m. At this time, I'll open the floor for public comment, which I don't believe there is any. No.
No one signed up.
So we'll move on to agenda adoption.
So moved.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And now we're going to review of the general government budget. And I'm going to turn it over to Mike to lead us through this. And if anybody, it's good to have you with us, Jay. If you have any questions or anything, just butt right in. You know what I mean? We're kind of informal on this thing. So, or any concerns, make
Okay.
sure they're heard. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and you can lead us through what you've got there.
All right, and I'll remind everybody, we are on Facebook and YouTube this evening, audio and video. Starting with the general government, and this is all expenditures we've already reviewed. To this point, we've already reviewed revenues as well as salaries and benefits, and now we're just working on expenditures per department. And I'll hit the highlights in general government, and you've got the paperwork in front of you. I've also got it on the screen here. Bank charges, they are they're charges from credit cards. Banks charge us for processing credit cards. You'll see in most of the budget for FY22, we have conservatively estimated roughly the same thing that we had in FY21, which is the budget we're in right now. If we feel there's absolutely an increase required, then we will go ahead and do that. Otherwise, we're either keeping it the same or trying to even reduce our expenditures as much as possible. Our cleaning contract, which our new contractor we signed back in August, I believe, is willing to do it again for the same price. So here we go with $16,000 for a cleaning contract for the municipal complex. Building permit surcharge, just to let you know, I had no clue what that was. What that is we are required to pay the Department of Housing and Community Development a surcharge for every permit that we issue, every building permit that we issue, and that's what that line item is. Down to our insurance coverage, that's our umbrella insurance provided by VRSA, which is Virginia Risk Sharing Association. It went up. Unbeknownst to us, it went up. It was budgeted $150,000 last year. It ended up being right around $160,000 last year. We don't expect an increase this year, so we've budgeted at the same $160,000. Our audit is a 5-year contract. That should stay the same for another couple of years. Actually, this year our audit went down because the auditors did not visit the island to perform the audit. They're doing it remotely. And I sent Robinson Farmer Cox, our auditors, a email telling them that I'm sure that since there was no travel or hotels or meals involved, that we'll have a much lower cost this year, and they agreed they would reduce it. So although we're budgeted at 25 this year, we expect that number to be way less. Donations, and just to hit the list real quick with donations, this is the Museum of Chincoteague, fireworks to the fire department, $1,000 for the Christmas parade, North Accomack Little League, North Accomack Soccer League, youth football, after prom, Santa and snow, and then $5,000 to the library. And that totals that line item for donations. That's the biggest part of donations the town makes on a small scale. The next two line items, transfers to the Civic Center and the Chamber, and those are both capped at $110,000 and have been for some time now. Office equipment and software maintenance, a few lines down. This was budgeted at $60,000 last year. I did increase it slightly this year. We've discussed this, and I went ahead and included it for now. That includes most of our software licenses and updates. It also includes a few extra dollars this year, about $3,800. We discussed getting a agenda service that will do our agendas. We also discussed briefly Municode, which is used by several localities in the state of Virginia and really all over the country. And I had a call with those folks and actually did a little webinar with those folks one-on-one. And they have a sliding scale for what they charge with municipalities based on the municipality size. And for our size, it is pretty reasonable. The agenda service is costing us $3,600, but if we buy the Municode service, they reduced it to $2,600. And by the time we add the $1,900 on the top of it to actually use Municode, it worked out to $3,800, as I thought very reasonable. This will allow us to codify all the ordinances which come out of the council chambers almost immediately. Within a few days, they'll be codified as part of our code. We send it down to Municode. They do all the legwork for us, and it is actually posted online. It's actually a cloud service. It's searchable. There's so many more things you can do with it than a standard code book like I handed Jay the other day. I think it would be very good for us. And how I came across it was when we were looking for an e-ticket ordinance for something for Robbie here back in the fall. Every municipality I went to try to find a copy of their e-ticket ordinance, I found it in Municode. They all had Municode. It was easy. Searched e-ticket, boom, it pops right up. So I put that in there. I think it's very reasonable, but certainly that's not something we have to live or die by.
So our website would then, when people go on our website, citizens, and they would be directed to Municode to read.
Yeah, there would be a link to Municode, to our particular section of Municode, and would take it right to our code.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right to the town code. And you can, if you go to, I think, the Virginia Beach, Richmond, Norfolk, I think even Poquoson, all had Municode.
Okay.
And as I said, I thought at first it would be pie in the sky. We'd never afford it. But it ended up with their sliding scale to be relatively reasonable for a community our size. Working on down tax conversion, that would be a one-time payment we make to Southern Software, who hosts our financial software, and they use that money. They convert the taxes from something that the county sends us to something that their system can read. So that's a one-time payment we do every year. Moving on down, we still have attorney's fees in there for if we happen to be able to find a town attorney. I want to leave that money in there for now. We're getting by right now without a town attorney, just having our work done piecemeal, but it would be nice to find someone who's good and reliable. So I would like to leave that money in there for now. It's certainly a large item that we could pull out if we need to. Working on down, pony penning expense. The large part of that is for the Jumbotron, which we have at Park. And that's where that line item comes from. We haven't repriced the Jumbotron this year. I would imagine they're going to be in line with what they have been before, but we'll still do that. Coming on down, you'll see our telephone bills, health insurance for our retirees, insurance for retirees' spouses and others, and the retiree prescription drug assistance. My understanding is that's referred to as the donut hole that we provide for our retirees as well. Virginia Committee for the Arts. That's a standard donation that we do every year. Half of that comes off of the grant of $4,500 from the BCA, and we give a grant of $9,000 to the Shincotic Cultural Alliance. Transfer to the trolley fund. That's our matching grant to the trolley fund this year. And down transfer to the harbor. That will be our matching grant to the VPA project if we are successful in getting the money that we applied for today with VPA. Okay, so moving on down into capital improvements for general government. We have money in for property acquisition reserve, office equipment, which is a new copier, council room furniture, which we used that money last year to get the camera and audio equipment that we're using to stream with right now. So I put it back in. That money is supposed to go for new furniture in the council room, new desk and chairs here. So we left it in for now. The boiler for this room, and I've inspected it. Harvey took me in there when I first came on board. That really needs to be replaced. We're going to make out with it this year, but for safety reasons, I think it's best that we replace that, and that's probably a good number. It's not that large a boiler. We have looked into converting to all heat pumps, which would be preferable. We could go all electric. And we do have air handlers right now in the town office side. However, by the time we buy the heat pumps and install the electricity it'll take to run the backup and emergency heat for those, we're going to be at the $10,000. So we've left that money in there. We still have the option of maybe going with the heat pumps, but we've left the money in there for a boiler right now. That's sort of interchangeable at this point. Okay, and that does general government. If you have any questions on that before we leave it.
That property acquisition reserve,
Uh-huh.
what is that? Is that we're putting money back in our,
We're putting money back
LGIP.
in our fund. I believe the mayor would know that money was used to buy the Matthews property and the firehouse most recently. Am I correct on that?
Well, the firehouse came out of general fund, I believe, but the property acquisition was the Matthews property.
so that goes back into our account at the LGIP or whatever?
Yes, sir.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that if we come across property that is advisable later on, we have funds to purchase it.
I got you. Okay.
Okay, moving on, we'll go to Public Works. I believe that should, if I put them together right, that should be the next thing in your
Yeah.
package.
You're right.
Okay. Again, we've done salaries and benefits already, so we'll move right down to operational expenses. The first line item, season deco and banners, that's pretty much flags. That's a catch-all. We use, buy flags, we buy banners with it, we replace the banners that need replacing. We do some work to the Christmas lights like we had to do this year to keep them up and going. That's kind of the catch-all account for that. Street lights, of course, that's paid to ANEC for the operation of the street lights that we have in town. Most of these things are standard tools and equipment. And you'll notice that we did try to maintain the level of funding for those accounts, even though prices increase. Again, trying to be as conservative as we can. The sanitation contract is quite a number. That's a 5-year contract. I believe we have 2 years left on that, if I'm not mistaken, at that price. And at that time, we really need to look carefully at that because while the contract is fixed, tipping fees continue to rise. And at some point, the landfill will be closed and all bets are off. We're going to need to look at completely redoing that line item. Parks and Rec expense, $40,000. That is merely to do upgrades and maintenance on our parks. That has nothing to do with Brianna's Park. And again, going down into the capital improvement section, we have money for another town vehicle, although that's something that we could easily defer. And that would be for Public Works, I'm sorry. There's still money in there to make repairs to the gym, the Donald J. Amron Center, which is the gymnasium over there on Church Street. And that is gutter and siding for that building, I'm told. Now, moving down to the playground equipment for Brianna's Park, you'll notice that number looks familiar. It's $192,000 for the new playground equipment. We left $5,000 in for the bridge tenders, renovation of the bridge tenders house. And we still have money for replacing the Public Works fuel pump. Is the fuel pump that's in the back here. It is very old, it's still working. That's kind of a preemptive replacement there, a proactive replacement rather than a reactive replacement, I should say. Again, something that we could defer should we need to. We still have money in to do a septic system at the chamber. Opinions vary as to whether that's enough money. And the Smith Street Park, or Brianna's Park, you'll see a number there of $235,000. That is made up of the $140,000 from the playground fund and $136,000 from the beach replenishment fund. That's where we get that number, which was approved by council a few weeks ago. And we put money back in there that we took out last year, or this current year that we're in, I guess, for repaving Memorial Park at $55,000. Again, if you look at the line below, the bottom here, the difference from last fiscal year is that number is down by $95,000 for Public Works.
How about the boat ramps? Are we doing, weren't they supposed to be looked at going forward?
We have looked at the boat ramps, and the only way that, well, in particular, I'm assuming you're talking about Memorial Park.
Yeah, Memorial Park in particular, yeah, because that one's kind of not usable at low tide deal.
That one, I see no way around, and we can discuss it a little later if you'd like to, but I see no way around other than rebuild that ramp, which means we're gonna have to go in there, bulkhead it, demo it, do it all over again. This was done before I came on board, but I understand, and the reason I say that is because I wasn't there watching it, but my understanding is from what was done is the Tynes Forces did the demo on that, and the contractor put back, and there's some unclarity there as to whether it was put back exactly like it was. And that's what I keep hearing, is it was not. So, but since we did part of the work, it's going to be difficult to point fingers.
Yeah, I wasn't interested in point, I was just thinking we need to get it fixed, because
We will definitely have to get it fixed, but we do have money, and we do have enough money in our boat ramp fund to redo it. It's just that,
so that's all covered.
it just, it's something that's very irritating
Yeah.
to have to go back in within a year or so and redo a job and spend money.
Could that, I don't know if that would qualify for a VPA grant or not. I mean, couldn't we do the whole project? I mean, we changed it this year to the project to move down to the harbor.
Correct.
But next year for the VPN, couldn't we redo that whole thing, make that ramp double wide? Right now, it's just a single wide ramp. Make it a double wide ramp and redo all that stuff.
And
I mean,
that would certainly be a great project. It would be something that would be used, as you know, would be used immensely. What I would like to do is speak to the folks at VPA and see if that's something that, I mean, they had and cautioned me when I did this year's presentation to read the guidelines carefully so that I give them what they're asking for.
Oh, yeah, I get
So,
that, but.
I'd like to talk to them a little bit and see if that is something that has a chance, basically. If it has a chance, then, we'll line it up and absolutely put it in. Where was it you told me that the
Down
county
at,
had just done a great ramp on
Not
this?
at Gargotha,
Just
one
far-
south of that.
Just south of that, it was, I can't think of
Folly Creek.
Folly Creek, yeah.
Yeah, the county just redid Folly Creek boat ramp, and man, it is wonderful.
Didn't have a floating dock down the center
It
or
does have a
something?
floating dock right down the center of it, put your boat in, and
And I did contact the county about that, and they sent me, I think John Somm was their engineer, and they sent me the engineer's contact information, everything, and one drawing of it. So, yeah, we can definitely look into that. But if that's something that's viable for VPA, that would be excellent. But we could definitely make some improvements there.
And you've got more room since we've taken out the skate park to really redesign the whole area. 'Cause
Oh, yeah.
You did a
Yeah.
double ramp, you need more parking as well, so that would
we
be.
can use
Absolutely.
that whole outfield area from the ballpark, where the skate park was, all the way down. So
And I hate to say it, but it's been a while since I've seen a game of baseball played there.
it's been
It's
a
all-
long time.
And we've got another field park coming with Brianna's Kindness Park. So. How about on the tennis court too? Was that in this one, or did we mention tennis court?
It is not, and I apologize, it is not in here. Harvey does have some prices on that, but it is not in here yet.
Okay.
But I will pull that up for y'all.
That's all I have.
Okay? And we're moving on to mosquito control, which is fairly short and sweet. I will touch on the salaries real quickly. Mosquito control, we bumped both of the workers that are, the workers attached to mosquito control are both part-timers. So we did bump them to 2.5% that was approved by the council for part-timers. Insurance is a big thing there. Most of that insurance, I believe, goes with the contracted spraying operation. Our contracted spraying operation, of course, is all aerial. Most of the items are fairly straightforward. As we spend a lot of money in chemicals. Every aerial spraying is 40 gallons. It's about $112 a gallon this year. We just checked the price on it. So the actual chemical costs more than the airplane to spray it, is what we're getting at here. We've budgeted $20,800 for contract spraying, which if you look at the history of there, seems to be the right number, if you look at the history going back. That doesn't quite get us 6 sprayings, because I think if you break the money out, I think it costs us about $3,600 each time, but apparently a deal was made some years ago for 6 sprayings for a contracted price of $25,000, is my understanding.
Right,
And that was whether you sprayed 6 times or twice.
right.
Lately here, we've been being billed for the number of times we spray, which has helped us because it's been under 6. And that's a wonderful thing if we can continue it. So I'm going to leave that number alone. I think it'll be adequate, given the history here for the last 5 years. We've certainly been there or right about there. So
Either dry spring and dry summer.
that would be nice. Helps with mosquitoes and certainly helps with tourists. Right?
Oh my God, yeah, sure.
So that's pretty much mosquito control in a nutshell. Anybody has any questions? On to roads. We've left snow removal alone. Snow removal can vary widely, as you well know. So far this year, Reelwood, we've been good on the snow removal thing, but as I think it was 2017 when we had Snowmageddon, this would have nowhere been adequate. So I'm going to leave that alone and be conservative and hope for the best here for next year. Pavement maintenance, $400,000. As you can see, that's about the right number in the last several years. Most or nearly all of that number is contracted paving, or contracted sidewalks, and or contracted drainage. That's most of that number. Sidewalks, that number is for maintenance and replacement of spotty areas that need replacing. Electricity, that again, that's for, and to be honest with you, I have to take a look and see why that number is so high. But in any event, the $50,000 at the bottom is for the street sweeper that we just purchased. That's a lease. This will be the second payment on that, and there's 3 more due after next year. The big income for this, of course, is our urban maintenance grant, which this year is just over $700,000. I believe it's $711,000 or somewhere in that neighborhood, and that funds nearly all of this. So, not a very controversial or worrisome division. Police Department. Chief Robbie is with us to answer any questions that I can't. We've done salaries and benefits. Looking down at operational expenses, most of them are pretty straightforward. Again, we've tried to be in the neighborhood. We have increased our training and travel slightly. Robbie and I did a conference call with the Academy Board. That's who we were talking to, right, Rob? And they have closed their housing at the Academy, so they will no longer offer housing. How much was it used to get when you send somebody down there? You had to pay for housing.
I believe it was $5 a night.
$5 a night, something like that, for housing. So from now on, when we send them down, we got to put them up in a hotel. So we did bump our travel up a little bit. Uniform allowance, all that's straightforward. Office supplies and equipment, that is increased a little bit, but we need to replace a little bit of furniture over there on the police side. That's why we bumped that up. We've also got, and I apologize here, well, yours looks fine. The Academy dues are bumped up a little bit. The Academy is trying to improve their facilities. They're working on an outdoor shooting range right now. Was it with Portsmouth or Pocosin?
Yorktown.
I was wrong on both parts. Okay. They're working with the city of Yorktown to try to do a joint use on their outdoor range. So I think, and they're putting $500,000. The Academy's putting $500,000 towards upgrading Yorktown's range, so that can be joint use.
Nice for Yorktown.
It's very nice for Yorktown. I was thinking the same exact thing.
Well, they had presentation on the indoor range also, but we won't even go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pie in the sky, that was. I forget how many tens of millions it was gonna cost. Moving on down, community youth programs, we've modified that a little bit. We did have a much lower expectation this year, or the year coming than we had for this year, due to COVID-related issues. The rest of it, moving on down into capital improvements. We do have a police vehicle in there. Although it's the same as it was budgeted last year, police department has seen the light and is going to go with a Dodge this year, which we expect to be more reasonable and better, more reliable, right?
It's so far.
More reliable.
It's happy with them.
You don't have to pacify Mike, you don't have to say that in public here.
Or Jay.
Or
Got
Jay.
Jay over here too, so.
Yeah, you can still say Jay.
Well, actually, this is based in science. The county has invested in Durangos, right, Robin? So the county has seen fit to put their dollars towards Dodge, and we're
County's been using Dodges for a while, they're Chargers.
the Chargers, but this is a new
Now
vehicle.
they're going to the-
I think you need to look at Blazers
This
just
year.
personally, right? Bow ties.
Yeah.
But in
We'll
any
see if we
event,
don't find
nobody can afford those, right? But in any event, we're using Todd Wessel's experience on the Durango to make sure it's a good vehicle before we purchase it. There's enough money in here to purchase another Ford.
That's what he's driving, isn't it? That's what Todd's vehicle is
Yeah.
a Durango. It's a
Yeah.
nice looking truck.
They got one new one.
Yeah.
Robbie got a chance to drive it already, and he'll have a year or two experience with them by the time we get ready to buy one. So we're kind of counting on that to make sure it's a good vehicle before we purchase it. And if we do purchase that vehicle, we hope it's going to be a little less money. It's got to be less money than the one we bought last year, right, Rob? The Stancil recorder is still in there. You want to explain the Stancil recorder, Rob?
I think the Stancil recorder has, basically it's been in there for several years now because of the age of our recording system. And with our new dispatch system, I tried to get to see if that company had some type of recording, and it was a whole lot more than $12,000. So we're gonna need the Stancil. That basically, records all the radio traffic and stuff. We have, our phone system actually records our phone lines. However, we don't have anything to record the radio traffic. So that Stancil is what's recording our radio traffic. So due to, we've had, some problems with it when I first started. I think it wasn't actually the problem with the recorder itself, it was the GPS. And when we redid all of it, we got a new put in there, and we haven't had any problem with it since. So I'm hoping, I'm looking to keep that in there because I believe that's probably, I think that was bought when the 911 was used.
Good luck.
Yeah. So it's close to wearing out its age, and that's what they've been, telling me when I first took over also, the Stancil Corporation. They said, we don't know when it's gonna go, it can go any day, so.
The next item is a radio repeater. We have one now. This is an emergency replacement. We don't have one on the shelf, so if it goes down, we're down. And that would be, I won't say a luxury item, but it is certainly a safety security item that we'd like to get. And that's a little pricey. Moving on down, patrol rifles. Well, let me back up. The camera system for the interrogation room. Robbie and I spoke about this. This is fairly expensive, but this camera integrates, I'll see if I can get it right, Rob. The camera,
It's WatchGuard. We use WatchGuard body cameras, we use WatchGuard vehicle cameras. This will be a WatchGuard camera also in our interrogation room that'll all tie everything in together. So basically when the officers are doing their report, they already go in, take the body camera footage and the vehicle camera footage off of the server that these are all kept on and put into the reports. Now all they have to do is just grab if they have anybody in there in the interrogation room that we're, questioning, they just grab that, stick it in there, and it all goes back and just almost turn. Very neat, nice little.
Nice
package.
neat package, yeah.
it's a smart camera.
I have tried, we have a camera in there now, but
Okay, and moving on down, new patrol rifles. That's enough rifles for outfit each car, right, Rob?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
And patrol bailout bags, and I actually attended the training a couple years ago at the high school. They had training for all law enforcement on the whole Eastern Shore. And Robbie was there, and this guy actually developed this bag. It's got everything you need in it medically when you go up on a scene.
Right.
In fact, he took everything out of it while he was there, and he said it would take him, I don't know how long he said it would take him to get it all back in there, but it was packed in there. This one bag has everything. It would be a nice addition to their, to each vehicle. And software maintenance on the cameras, they are expensive. And that about does the police department. If you'll notice at the bottom there, that's an increase of about $53,000 from last year's budget, police. Any questions before we move on? I'm sorry.
Is the watchdog, is that part of the software?
Watchguard.
Watchdog, is that what the watchdog?
Yeah.
Is that what the software is?
Does it include software maintenance?
Software maintenance cameras,
Yeah,
6,500.
yeah, so that's a watchdog camera.
Right, we have a maintenance agreement with them where we actually have, I believe it's two extra body cameras that we keep here all the time, in case one of the officers does go down and, of course, when one of them does break or something happens, we send it right to them, they get it fixed and ship it back to us. So, and plus, we haven't had since I've been back, we haven't had any issues with the server or anything yet, but that's included in, it's a whole package deal for our cars and everything, it's all included in there. So, it's a little expensive, but it does cover a lot.
So what you're talking about the interrogation and possibly getting a watchdog camera for that as well. Can you tie in some type of relationship, I guess, case relationship between the interrogation room and the body cameras, where it would,
Yes, it does.
identify each case or circumstance?
Yeah, well, that's what, you're talking about, like when you put together a case?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happens. When the officers put together their case, of course, they have a case number, and, I'll use an example of a DUI. When they, have the DUI, of course, the first thing that's going to come on is the vehicle camera. Because as soon as we activate the lights to stop the vehicle, that comes on, starts recording, actually, it goes back a few minutes, and records everything, 2 or 3 minutes beforehand. Then, when the officer exits his car, they start the body camera. So you've got the face-to-face body camera with the person as you're, interviewing them, and then the field sobriety test and everything. Then if they're placed under arrest, they're brought in here, and in the interrogation room is also our hospitalizer that they do the test for them. So that all, is recorded also. Then once the officer's done, has got the one for the person taking an accident or producing whatever. Then they go back, they get their report number, they fill out their report, and then they go grab off the server. Because, see, one of the things Randy was able to get before I came back was that when the cars pull up, the automatic download to the server from that. Now, when we put our body cameras in the charger, when we get all duty, is when that all downloads to the server. And then this, I'm taking it ahead of yet, but the new camera that is in the interrogation room, that's going to go directly to that server also. So that way, when the officer gets their report right now, they're just pulling their body camera footage off of that server and their car camera footage. But then they'll be able to also pull the footage from the interrogation room, put it all in one nice neat package, and then the Thomas Attorney's assistant, she'll call up here and tell Tyler, send an email, say, hey, I need this report number on this case. He just goes in there, sends it to the cloud, gets her a password. She goes in there and downloads everything she's got. There you go. Right.
It's good to have one all-inclusive system that, you're
That's what, yeah.
All right, gentlemen, the last thing we have tonight is dispatch. Dispatch is a fairly straightforward department. We've done salaries and benefits already. You'll notice that salaries and dispatch this year are about, or what we've proposed for 2022 is about $10,000 over what was budgeted in 2021. I do not know why that number in 21 was lower than the actual number in 20. I'm sure there was a reason, maybe expected fewer hours or fewer overtime hours or something, but in any event, the budget for 22 is more in line with what was actually spent in 2020, if you compare that. So I feel that that's the correct number. Moving on down to the operational expenses. Travel and training, again, we did bump that up a little bit. There's a uniform allowance, that's all the same. Equipment and maintenance agreements, they're the same. What you will see is a new line item for the dispatch service, which was approved by the council a few months ago, that we have ordered and is hopefully going to show up any day to be installed. And everybody's interested to see what this service is going to be like. It's supposed to be very, very good, very reliable, and we certainly hope so, but it's $1,000 a month, the service is. And that's what you see budgeted there. If you look at the difference this year from last fiscal year, it's about $24,000. A full half of that, of course, is the dispatch service that we just was just approved. The next best portion of that is the increase in what was budgeted for salaries, which was about $10,000. And again, we increased the about $1,500 in travel and training. The rest of this is about the same. I will say again, and keep this in mind as we go through the budget this year, again, last year, the VRS, the Virginia Retirement System, was budgeted at 9%, when in actuality, they had sent out a notice saying it bumped to 11.37%. So there was a 2.37% increase that started this last July 1st that wasn't accounted for in the current budget, but it's accounted for in this budget. So everything you look at as far as salaries, especially, actually it'll be in the benefits section in retirement, all the retirement should look a lot larger out of proportion to last year, and it was because of that 2.37% increase that we didn't know about last year. But that's all I have, and I'll be glad to entertain any questions you have concerning the whole process or what we've gone over this evening.
About Public Works, you had added in the park equipment. So we're pulling that from the savings account. So you're
Yes.
not, are you recognizing that as a pass-through anywhere?
Yes, it'll be recognized in our revenues.
So in revenue, you're gonna have a line item. for
In
the
revenues,
vehicle.
you'll have a line item that says, this is coming from this account, this is coming from this account, this is coming from donations.
I gotcha.
We'll have a donation line, and as a matter of fact, I was going through that, and I've neglected to put the donation line in there yet, in our revenues. I
Yeah,
know
'cause
we've
I
already
didn't see that on the revenues from last time.
Right, we've already been through revenues, but I looked at it and I've neglected to put that in there. But yes, we will be getting about $150,000 from donations for this that will appear in the revenues that offset this expense on the public works side.
That's the only thing I had. You had
That's it.
anything?
Nothing for me.
Jay, got anything else? Without any other further questions or comments, I'll entertain the motion.
So moved.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.